Cody Wilson of Defense Distributed is in trouble, big time. What's this all about? What's in the news with stories on Snowden validation, FDA making things worse, cops busted by Vice, rape kits, and big money for Space Force. Finally, an Ask Me Anything where I answer your burning questions. This episode is brought to you by ZenCash, now known as Horizen, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right. Also brought to you by Free Talk Live, providing you with fresh, pro-liberty content 7 days a week on more than 180 radio stations across the country.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the home of American poet, editor, and author Sarah Josepha Hale, author of Mary Had a Little Lamb, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 105, Cody Wilson, and it's Tuesday, September 25th, 2018, when there have already been more than 723 people killed by police this year. And the United States debt clock shows us at more than $21,497,770 million in debt. What's wrestling my JIMMIES this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. Cody Wilson screwed up badly. Let's break this down. First of all, when you thumbed your nose at the government, the way someone like Cody Wilson has, you have to be on your P's and Q's. You've got to be squeaky clean, because you know they're gunning for you, no pun intended. Cody did not take that to heart, sadly, and now he's up to his neck in a mess that could have been avoided. But I'm in no way saying that what he did was wrong. We'll get to that in a bit, but first let's look at the facts of the case. Cody Wilson apparently went to the website sugardaddymeet.com and found a young lady who was willing to spend some time with him in exchange for some money. This site has a sign-up process that omits anyone under the age of 18 for signing up for the site unless they're lying about their age. And it seems this is exactly what Cody's accuser did. She lied about her age because she was on the site and she's only 16 years old. Whether Cody knew she was under 18 or not doesn't matter to the law. She could have even shown Cody a fake ID showing her age is 18, and the cops and prosecutors still wouldn't care. So Cody picks up this young lady, and I'm using young lady for a reason, because she is a young lady, she's not a child. And he takes her to a hotel, where she says that they had sex, and he then paid her $500 and then took her to Whataburger to drop her off. The young lady then apparently told her counselor about this interaction. Now apparently, Cody told this young lady that he was a, quote, big deal, and bragged to her, so the girl looked him up after their completely consensual affair. When the counselor found out about this, she told the police about it, and the cops then issued a warrant for his arrest. But before the arrest was issued, Cody went to Taiwan because he had been told by a friend of the young lady that he consensually had sex with, that the young lady had already talked to the police about this. Once all this warrant came out, Cody's passport was withdrawn by the U.S., so Taiwan picked him up for being in the country illegally, and he's since been sent back to Texas, and he paid his bail to get out of jail. Now he's charged with second-degree felony of sexual assault. This statute and allegations do not in any way claim that he forced himself on this young lady or in any way harmed her at all. It only shows that he committed statutory rape. Now that's an aptly named law because it is essentially the rape of nothing more than a statute. Cody Wilson did not rape this girl. She consented 100% of the way. If this act had happened in New Hampshire or many other states, it would have been completely legal. But in Texas, 17 is the age of consent, not 16. To give you some information on that, 11 states are 18 plus, 8 states are 17 plus, the rest are 16 plus for consent. So in more than half of the states in this country, this was a completely legal act. Hell, if it had happened just across the border from Texas and Oklahoma, it would have been legal. Cody Wilson has not committed a crime in any way in this case. He may have broken the law, but those are two entirely different things. He harmed no one. He forced nothing on anyone, and he did not aggress against anyone. This is clearly a victimless crime. While the age of consent is a discussion that is important to have, I don't think it even matters in this case. 16-year-olds are clearly old enough to consent. I see no question about this at all. In the full affidavit, the girl clearly says that all of this was 100% consensual between them, and at 16 years old, she has the ability to consent, period. My good friend Tom Knapp has a great question and answer post on his website, napster.blogspot.com. That's KNAPPSTER.blogspot.com about this topic. I'm going to just read this to you because it's that good. Question: was it a setup? Answer: I've seen many ideas thrown out there ranging from the police set it up as a sting from the beginning to get Cody Wilson, to the victim is anti-gun and when she came across Wilson on the sugar daddy site, she saw an opportunity to get him, or it's the counselor who's anti-gun and saw such an opportunity. If there's anything hinky on that end of things, and I'm not saying there is, I'd guess one or both of the latter two rather than the first one. If the police were setting up a sting, they'd have used an adult cop posing as a minor and tried to get Wilson to overtly reference a desire to have sex with a minor, then nabbed him when he showed up for the meet. Question: does it matter if he didn't know she is a minor? Answer: according to the statute, no. But the statute is clearly defective in trying to get around the intent angle by making the sex illegal regardless of whether the person knows the age of the child at the time of the offense. Let's go to an analogy here, and suppose that a statute defines killing a person with poison as murder regardless of whether the person knows he or she is feeding the victim poison. Would that pass mens rea muster? Not a chance. Question: is Cody Wilson a pedophile? Answer: not based on this charge. The victim was clearly both post-pubescent and posing as an adult. If he was a pedophile, he would by definition have been looking for sex with a prepubescent child. Question: do you think Cody should go to jail for this? Answer: based on the available facts, to the extent that I think I know them, no. This charge is complete bullshit from beginning to end. He allegedly engaged the services of a sex worker, which should not be illegal. She turned out to be younger than a number drawn out of a hat by some politicians, which does not define actual ability to consent. She seems to have 1. falsely held herself out as older than the number drawn out of a hat, 2. convincingly held herself out as fully competent to consent, and 3. actually consented. Question: what does this mean for defense distributed? Answer: Wilson is alleged to have picked the victim up in a vehicle registered to defense distributed. Depending on what the asset forfeiture laws look like in Texas, the state might seize that vehicle, any computers used in arranging the encounter, and possibly even go after the nonprofit's assets. And of course, the whole thing will be used to demonize both Wilson personally and Defense Distributed itself. In theory, that shouldn't affect the outcome of the free speech, free press case regarding publication or downloading of CAD files for home manufacturing of guns. But it will certainly be used to influence public opinion on the case. Question: is there a defense fund, and if so, will you contribute to it? Answer: I've looked and there doesn't seem to be a defense fund yet. When and if one pops up, yes, I will contribute to it, and I hope you will too. At this point, I see no case for anything less than full moral and material support for both Wilson and Defense Distributed from all who support freedom. I couldn't agree more, Tom. Thanks, Tom, for putting together that great Q&A. Everybody, please make sure to check out Tom's blog at napster.blogspot.com. Again, that's KNAPPSTER.blogspot.com. Always really great libertarian content on that site. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In Do As I Say, Not As I Do news, current and former New York City police officers were found at the center of a major prostitution and gambling ring. You guys likely know by now that I view prostitution and gambling as completely victimless crimes that should not be illegal. However, it is the hypocrisy of this situation that makes it newsworthy to me. 7 active members of the New York Police Department, NYPD, 3 sergeants, 2 detectives, and 2 police officers were arrested and stripped of their badges for allegedly facilitating a prostitution and gambling ring in Brooklyn and Queens. They face charges for enterprise corruption, promoting prostitution, and official misconduct, according to news reports. Retired NYPD detective Ludwig Paz and his wife, Arelis Peralta, a former prostitute, are believed to be the leaders of the operation. Paz has been charged with promoting prostitution and enterprise corruption. A 3-year Internal Affairs Bureau probe into police-protected brothels, surveillance, undercover operations, and wiretaps led to the arrest of 40 civilians and the questioning of an additional 30 police officers. Much of the investigation is focused on the Brooklyn South Narcotics Squad. Investigators reportedly found that in some instances prostitutes were directed to give sex and massages to cops as a way to congratulate them for their work. The ring, which is believed to have brought in $2 million between August 2016 and September 2017, used online ads and a knowledge of NYPD procedures to stay in business. Isn't this just typical, though? Every single one of these cops would, in a second, kidnap you or I and put us in a cell for doing the exact same thing. Yet, here they are, not only doing it themselves, but protecting other brothers on their side of the thin blue line. The thin blue line is nothing more than gang colors protecting the largest organized gang in the world. In my old stomping ground news, a 51-year-old man identified by his DNA has pled guilty to 3 aggravated rapes that occurred more than 16 years ago in the Fraser-Raleigh area of Memphis, Tennessee. Defendant Patrick Marshall was given concurrent, no-parole sentences of 18 years, 19 years, and 25 years for the rape cases that occurred in 2000 and 2002. The settlement was approved by criminal court judge Chris Kraft. The cases all involved early morning break-in attacks at knife point, including the rape of a 22-year-old woman on September 23, 2000, where a suspect broke in through a kitchen window, the rape of a 32-year-old woman on June 7, 2002, and the rape of a 19-year-old woman on July 2, 2002. In each case, rape kits were created but were among thousands that were not tested until discovered years later. Now, I would bet dollars to donuts that during this 18-year period where these rape kits weren't tested, there were thousands of tests in that area to see if a substance a person carried on their person while not hurting a soul was a controlled substance or not. Memphis is a high, violent crime area, but it has a massive vice squad that spends tons of time and money on victimless crimes. Maybe we should shift those resources to stopping real crime, and a serial rapist would not have been walking the street for 18 fucking years. I wonder how many other rapes he committed while he walked free that we don't know about yet. How many other innocent women were ravaged by this monster while cops focused on a few grams of weed? This really pisses me off in case you missed it. ZenCash has changed their name to Horizen to better represent their transition from a pure cryptocurrency to a pioneering platform that protects consumer data. They're focusing more on the wider vision of what ZenCash was all about. The new name, Horizen, reinforces that the project is forward-thinking and visionary and will broaden the horizons of what the community can accomplish in the world using the platform. Not only is it one of the best privacy-oriented cryptocurrencies with zero-knowledge technology built into it, but they also have private chat over their network. And soon, Horizen will include the ability to publish information and go anywhere on the web, all with complete privacy. They are working toward the day when anyone will be able to build privacy-based applications on the Horizen platform and generate income from them. This will allow Horizen to bring thousands of real-life services to the community, services that provide freedom, utility, and privacy. The unique spelling of Horizen is a nod to their heritage and recognizes that they remain committed to the vision that their project was built upon. Their coin and ticker symbol remains Zen. So ZenCash is now Horizen, and Horizen is bringing privacy to life. You can learn more at horizen.global. That's HORIZEN.global. In validation for Snowden news, a European court says the mass surveillance he exposed violates privacy rights. When Edward Snowden revealed that the government was secretly collecting and storing mass amounts of our private communications data, he wasn't just talking about the United States government. He also exposed the United Kingdom's intelligence agency. Government Communications Headquarters, or GCHQ, is doing the same thing overseas. The European Court of Human Rights ruled that the UK's mass collection of everybody's internet communications data violated privacy and failed to provide sufficient safeguards. The Guardian explains that after Snowden exposed the British government's role in citizen surveillance, tapping into communication networks to suck on that massive fire hose of data, 14 human rights and privacy groups filed suit against the UK. By a 5-2 vote, the court's judges determined that the UK had violated the privacy components of the European Convention of Human Rights. The court ruled that while bulk surveillance can be justified to track terrorists and criminals and protect national security, the collection of data must indicate the types of crimes that would lead to bulk gathering of information, which classes of people would be subject to having their data gathered, and of course procedures for how that data would be used, how it would be shared, and when it would be destroyed. The judges concluded, it does not consider that the authorities have struck a fair balance between the competing public and private interests by exempting it in its entirety from the safeguards applicable to the searching and examining of the content. After the court's ruling, rather than taking all the credit for exposing the surveillance to public scrutiny, Snowden tweeted out his appreciation for the groups who've taken the matter to the courts to try to stop what the UK has been doing, saying, "For 5 long years, governments have denied that global mass surveillance violates your rights. And for 5 long years, we have chased them through the doors of every court. Today, we won. Don't thank me. Thank all of those who never stopped fighting." And of course, the UK's response to this revelation that they were secretly snooping on its citizens was to pass the Investigatory Powers Act, a broad surveillance law that essentially gives the government permission to do what it had secretly been doing, and apparently illegally doing, all along. It's good to see that Snowden's revelations are still having an impact this many years later. Snowden is a hero, and I am hoping that one day he will be vindicated enough that he'll be able to return home so I can shake his hand and thank him for his service in person. In making things worse news, FDA regulations aimed at discouraging underage vaping may also deter smokers from switching. The FDA is considering restrictions aimed at making e-cigs and vaping less attractive to adolescents. Scott Gottlieb, the head of the Food and Drug Administration, says, "We know that the flavors play an important role in driving the youth appeal, so we may take steps to curtail the marketing and selling of flavored products." The problem is that supposedly kid-friendly e-liquids are also popular with adults, many of whom report that flavor variety was an important factor in switching from smoking to vaping. A recent survey reported in Harm Reduction Journal found that adult frequent e-cigarette users in the USA who have completely switched from smoking cigarettes to using e-cigarettes are increasingly likely to have initiated e-cigarette use with non-tobacco flavors and to transition from tobacco to non-tobacco flavors over time. The authors of that study warned that restricting access to non-tobacco e-cigarette flavors may discourage smokers from attempting to switch to e-cigarettes. The FDA itself recognized that danger last year when it noted the role that flavors may play in helping some smokers switch to potentially less harmful forms of nicotine delivery. More generally, the FDA can force manufacturers to make e-cigarettes less appealing to teenagers, but only at the cost of making them less appealing to adults as well, which is inconsistent with the agency's avowed commitment to harm reduction. The public health impact of encouraging smokers to get their nicotine from less dangerous sources, Gottlieb says, can dwarf anything else we're able to accomplish in any reasonable stretch of time by avoiding a lot of death and disease that's going to be caused by cigarettes. Isn't this just fucking typical? The market provides a much safer product that has a much better end-user experience, and the FDA wants to do nothing but fuck it up, even while acknowledging that e-cigarettes are a much healthier and better alternative than the product they will be forcing people back into with their new restrictions. The next person who tells me the FDA is here to help us gets fucked in the neck.
One of the largest reaching Liberty programs today is Free Talk Live, with a 3-hour radio program 7 nights a week on more than 180 radio stations across the country. They are so influential on talk radio that they are the number 27 radio program in the country, according to Talkers Magazine. They also have a daily podcast that's been voted Best Political Podcast 5 times by podcastawards.com. The hosts of Free Talk Live are street preachers for the ideas of liberty. They take the message of peace, liberty, and cryptocurrency to the masses on the radio, where they are not preaching to the choir. You can listen via podcast or live via audio streaming or the Twitch or YouTube channels at freetalklive.com. I listen to their podcast myself every single morning when I get up to get a fresh perspective on news and very, very strong libertarian perspectives. Make sure to add them to your feed at freetalklive.com.
In It's Not Their Money news, the U.S. Air Force estimated startup costs for a proposed U.S. Space Force, a new military service backed by President Trump, will be around $13 billion in the first 5 years alone, according to a Department of Defense memo seen by Reuters. The Air Force, the U.S. military branch that has responsibility for space, authored the September 14th memo outlining a proposal for a lethality-focused organization that will field space superiority capabilities. The Trump administration in August announced an ambitious plan to usher in the force as the sixth branch of the military by 2020. It would require congressional approval first. The Pentagon memo was written by Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson, a former member of Congress from New Mexico. The memo estimated that creating a Space Force will cost in excess of $3 billion in the first 12 months, with an additional $10 billion needed over the following 4 years. The U.S. Air Force estimated that there could be more than 13,000 people in the new Department of the Space Force. Yep, this is what we need to be pissing money away on, a whole new branch of the military. I guess conservatives have used every tactic they could think of, including a perpetual war on terror, to keep expanding the military budget. So now they're having to go sci-fi on our asses to accomplish it. And 13,000 new bureaucrats and government flunkies stealing money from us? Really? What the actual fuck? Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Are those dry, boring, run-of-the-mill political talk shows putting you to sleep on your commute or at work? Are you ready for some fun?
Look no further. Blast Off with Johnny Rocket is a Seattle-based podcast expressing viewpoints of free markets, voluntary exchange, badass music, wicked banner, and of course, drinking.
The Blast Off doesn't shy from the truth, but always brings the party.
Let's rock and roll, Raylene.
Bring it on, Johnny.
You can check us out at thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Again, that's thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Launchpad Media. Always launching ideas in your direction.
And now I'm crying over you.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's been a while since I've done an AMA, Ask Me Anything segment on the show, so I'm going to fix that right now. If you have any questions for me, you can always go to the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group on Facebook or become a supporter of the show at thelavaflow.com/support, and you'll get access to a private Facebook group just for my supporters, and you can ask a question there. As always, my patron questions always come first, but I don't have any patron questions this week, so let's jump right into these. The first several questions come from Jeffrey L. Now, I'm going to knock all of these questions out right now because they're all really, really simple and easy to answer. His first question is, political bias aside, what are your thoughts on Mark Levin? My answer is simple. Who is Mark Levin? I've heard the name, but I've never paid a bit of attention to him. So I had to Google him and found out that he's a radio guy and apparently does some stuff for Fox News. I don't listen to the radio, and I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch any news. From what I can tell, he's a right-wing conservative who's pro-Trump. Now, that leads me to the second part of my answer. I don't think about Mark Levin. Next question from Jeffrey. Even though you said that same-sex marriage was none of your business, should the federal government have jurisdiction over the issue of marriage, state governments, or leaving it to the churches? The short answer to should the federal government is no, always, every single time. As far as I'm concerned, the federal government or any government of force should not even exist, so they should not do anything. However, to be more clear to your question, I don't think anyone, whether it be government or churches, should have a monopoly on marriage. I've said it before. If the government got out of the marriage business tomorrow, I would immediately divorce my wife of 14 years to get them out of that part of my life and have a non-governmental marriage. And that would not be a church marriage either. No gods, no masters. Thank you very much. Questions 3 and 4 are very similar, so I'm going to tackle these together. Despite the fact that we agree on the issue of the drug war, do you think they should be legal across the board, or do you think some regulations are necessary? And despite the fact that some people find prostitution as being distasteful, do you believe that this should be legal on the grounds of personal freedom? Again, should the government? No! There should be no restrictions on drugs at all. If one person has a product they want to sell and another person wants to buy that product, that is the only regulation that should exist. Consent. Period. I don't care if the product is drugs or sex or a nuclear weapon. To each his own. Question 5. It's another easy one, but it is making me wonder if Jeffrey ever even listens to my show at all. What are your views on homeschooling or private schooling over public school? Jeffrey, my view on this can be summed up in a phrase that I say several times a week in my life and many, many, many times on this show. Get your kids out of government indoctrination centers as soon as possible. Homeschool if you can. If not, find a way to get your kids in private school. But if we are going to free the next generation, we have got to stop them from being indoctrinated by the government. Period. And next he asks, even though you said you enjoy hearing from listeners, do you take suggestions from outside sources for topics to discuss, or do you like to find things independently to talk about? So probably 90% of my content comes from me finding it on the internet. However, I have on several occasions used content that others have sent me or posted in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group or the Lava Flow Super Secret Supporters Facebook group that's exclusively for my supporters. If the story touches me somehow, I'll use it. But I'm pretty particular about the type of stories I cover on my show, so that's why most of it comes from me. And Jeffrey's final question is, what will it take to convince people who believe libertarians are isolationists that this is not entirely the case? You know, Jeffrey, I can't control the thoughts of another person. If someone wants to believe that a group of people who want free markets and no tariffs among countries, open borders to allow people to travel freely, and eventually no borders, are isolationists, then there's little I can do to correct that idiocy. You know, I personally waste little time trying to convince muggles that libertarianism is the only consistently moral ideology out there. I just suck at doing it, frankly. I leave that to others who are much better at it. I'm much better at taking minarchists who already have a good grounding in libertarian theory and turning them into anarchists, so that's what I focus on. But thank you for all of your questions, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it. My last question this week comes from someone I've had email conversations with and finally had the pleasure of meeting at this year's Free Coast Festival. He goes by the moniker New Hampshire Man, and he runs a blog called, you guessed it, New Hampshire Man at newhampshireman.com, and his goal is to help you live personal freedom through lifestyle design. It's a great site, so make sure you check it out at newhampshireman.com and his Facebook page and YouTube channel as well. His question is, how do you balance ideology with reality? I love the idea of voluntarism, but struggle with the reality that some people will legitimately want some form of government. So it seems contrary to force them into voluntarism. For that reason, with a concerted effort to approach this with an open mind, I find myself balancing around the idea of a minarchist society being a more realistic goal. I ask because I respect your insight. New Hampshire Man, first of all, thank you very much for that question. I don't find it possible to force voluntarism on anybody. I mean, that's in the name, voluntary. If people choose to not voluntarily interact with people, I mean, that's a choice for them to make. Nothing is forced on them. But to the bigger question in your question, what about people who want government to take care of them? Well, they can choose to be a part of a government, voluntarily, of course, and pay taxes to that government and see it pissed away like we do now. But they also should have the ability to voluntarily leave such a government whenever they choose, or else it's not really voluntary, is it? A good example of this is some of the ideas surrounding seasteading and the like. There will likely be all sorts of different seasteads with different types of governmental bodies. Some will be very libertarian in nature, others may be more communistic or socialistic in nature, and many others would probably be somewhere in between. But as long as I have the ability to pull my anchor and move to another seastead with a government that better suits my needs, then I'm totally okay with this. There's no force involved. I can exit at any time. This is the future of governance. Free market competition for people and their resources by providing them a better government. This is why I am so excited about projects like seasteading and free cities. Again, Jeffrey and New Hampshire Man, both, thank you so much for your questions. And if you want to leave a question for me, go check out the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group, and there's a thread in there where you can leave your question for me, and I will eventually answer it on one of my shows. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite baby shower planner, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/105. I have a new supporter this week. Miles W. became a whopping $5 per episode donor through Patreon. Dude, thank you so much. It is so much appreciated, Miles. And thanks to Miles and all of my awesome supporters, I am at $278 per episode, or 55.6% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Guys, thank you all so much for your support, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you, so add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting right now. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. Again, that's thelavaflow.com/support. I also have a new Apple Podcast review this week. Cod Edgar says, "Love this show. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and few are so well presented, so calming to listen to, and so fact-filled as the Lava Flow. I consider myself an anarcho-capitalist, so I concur with 95% of the points in this show. And even when I might disagree with a point, I still feel like I could have a really great, interesting, and valuable discussion with the host, as I just feel like he's a real person and talks to others with respect. This is such a lacking protocol these days, and it's so refreshing to listen to this show. I'd recommend it to anyone that wants to get an honest idea of how true libertarian and anarcho-capitalist thinking works without feeling like a bunch of crazies are preaching to you. Well done to the host of this show." Wow, thanks, Cod. That is a kick-ass review. I really appreciate that. And if you've got a minute and you want to hear your review on this show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids like Cod are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.